Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at every single class in set 11 of TFT. We're going to be telling you guys what the classes do, what ones are good, what ones are bad, and how you can utilize them in the game to gain some LP this season. So the first class we're looking at today is going to be Altruist. So Altruist heal the lowest health ally 15% of the damage they deal, and also gives your team armor and magic resistance, okay? So when you have 2 of these guys on the field, you get 10 magic and armor resistance. When you have 3, you get 20. When you have 4, you get 40. So the Altruist champions here are Riven, Soraka, and Rakan. Now, Riven and Soraka very rarely are in any comps together, and if they are, it's not generally, a high tier one. So if you're ever going to hit even the 2 mark of Altruist, generally it's just going to be level 8 or 9 where you're flexing a Rakan on at the end because you have your entire build already, and it happens to contain a Soraka or contains a Riven. In my opinion, it's not really worth trying to get this many of them on the board because they only give 10 20 magic and armor resistance, and really when you get to the end game that is kind of irrelevant. At that point you are just going to get shredded by level 3 with multiple items. It's very minimal little boost. It's nice to have, it helps everyone on your team, particularly the 15% healing is quite nice if you have like a level 3 Yone, something like this, some kind of Bruiser who'll heal himself over and over again. That's quite nice, but ultimately this isn't going to be a make or break sort of class for you guys. So the next class we have here is the Arcanists. So Arcanists gain ability power and grant ability power to allies. So at 2 you get 20 ability power to all of your allies. At 4 you get 50 for Arcanists and still 20 for all your allies. At 6 you get 85 for the Arcanist champions and 40 for all your other allies. And if you happen to get 8, you can get 125 AP for your Arcanists and 125 for everyone else. So the Arcanist champions are Ahri, Lux, Neeko, Alawi, Zoe, Syndra, and Lissandra. So the majority of these are very powerful, okay? A lot of these go together in a couple of different comps. You're usually going to see Lissandra on a level 9 board, people are going to flex in with that. Very strong champion. Syndra is very popular in the Fated build, Neeko is very popular in most builds as a frontline tank. You're going to see a Zoe in a Storewave build, so it is quite feasible to get usually 2 of these on a build. Very hard, I think, to get 4. You can do it if you go to like level 9 and you're flexing the Sanders and things like that, but in general you're typically going to see the 2 and you're going to get that 20 AP boost to all allies. So it is quite a nice one, and it is a nice little damage boost to a couple of your allies, especially if they have items like, for example, a Rabadon's Death Cap. This is going to be very nice. It's going to scale percentage wise with that. So the next one is the Behemoth. So Behemoths gain increased armor and magic resistance, and whenever a Behemoth dies, the nearest Behemoth gains 50% more of the magic and armor resistances they have, okay? So at 2 you get 25 magic and armor resistance, at 4 you get 55, and at 6 you get 80. It's not really feasible to put 6 of these on the field, although they are strong. It does give a lot of resistances. They don't really do any damage themselves, and you will lose the fight. What I recommend is generally you have 2 of these on. You can maybe get 4 of these on if the build allows for it, and if you get to the very end of the game, you're getting level 9, things like this, level 10, you can start looking to slotting these guys in to give your overall Behemoths a bit of a buff, make your frontline a bit stronger, but generally you're going to stick to the 2 here. The 2 most common I see together are the Cho'Gath and the Malphite. If you're playing a Caitlyn reroll build, very strong, very tanky, and you can get those very early, makes it so you can really win streak early because no one can kill your tanks. So overall, I would say this is something very good to play for, and you could look at going to 4 in the early game if you're not hitting your normal build. Say you're going for like INKBORN or something, you can't hit it, just throw in a Cho'Gath, Malphite, Yorick, Shen, things like this. They'll be really tanky and probably win you a lot of rounds just with how tanky they are and unkillable. So the next class we have here is Bruisers. So Bruisers give your team 100 maximum health. Bruisers gain maximum health additionally. At 2 on the field, you will get 20% additional max health. At 4, you'll get 40%. At 6, you'll get 60%. At 8, you'll get 80%. And also every 3 seconds, the Bruiser will deal 6% of their maximum health as physical damage on their next attack. The Bruiser champions are Kabuko, Rek'Sai, Riven, Aatrox, Tahm Kench, Galio, and Sylas. So there are some quite strong champions in here, particularly Tahm Kench and Galio. Very strong Bruisers, very tanky, and pretty much the core of a couple of builds because of how tanky they actually are. So obviously Bruiser can be a strong synergy, but again, much like the others, you're really only ever going to get 2 Bruisers on a build. You may in some instances get 4, but it is very hard to get 4 on a build. I think you would be lucky with 2 the majority of the time, and then anything above that you're sort of throwing your wider build out of whack. So for Bruisers, you're really never going to go past the 2 mark. You're only really going to have 2 on the field. If it's really early game, you want to get 4 on because you've got absolutely nothing else. It's doable. You'll get more max health and maybe give you a slight edge because they've got to hit through more, and that might give it the edge. But in general, you're never going to have more than 2 on because they won't fit in the same team. So Galio and Riven fit the same team, you know. Silas and Galio at times can fit in the same team, but it's quite rare. One of them will be completely out of place and not get the other synergy. They would only be there for Bruiser reasons. So overall, I think it can be kind of strong, but 20% health on 2 of your characters is not amazing, and 100 health on someone is next to nothing in my opinion. So next up we have Duelist. So Duelist gain attack speed on each attack, stacking up to 12 times. So when you have 2 on the field, you'll get 5% attack speed. When you have 4 on, you have 9% attack speed. 6 on, 15% attack speed, and your Duelists take 12% less damage. And if you get 8 at some point with some help of augments, you will be able to get 18% attack speed and you will take 18% less damage. So you can go right from the start looking for a Duelist build. You can build a Yasuo Darius to get your core 2. You can then add in a Qiyana and a Tristana or a Volibear, whatever you get first, to get your core 4. Now, something I want to point out is that it is stacking up to 12 times, so that 5% attack speed goes to 10% on a second hit, 15% on a third hit, so on and so forth. And it gets very ridiculous whenever you get 6 on, you know, 15, 30, 45% attack speed with 6 Duelists on for every single one of these champions who are Duelist. Very, very strong in my opinion. You can definitely carry and win games with this comp. Now, it's not the strongest in the game. It is a good alternative to the meta. Not many people run this, to be absolutely honest with you. Level 3 Volibear is a beast. Level 3 Yasuo is very tanky early. Lee Sin is very weak in my opinion, but Irelia is extremely strong. So you can definitely win and carry and get to a very reasonable elo. You'll definitely have no problem getting to at least platinum with this build. If you run it exclusively, you can force it and get the platinum. Anything over that, you need to be a bit more flexible. So yeah, for Duelist, I really like it and I would recommend running it if you get the opportunity. So the next one is Exalted. So your team gains 4% bonus damage plus more based on your level. After combat, score 1 XP in a soul core and sell the core to claim the XP. Every single game, the champions selected to be Exalted are completely different, so it is very random. And if you get 3 on the field, you have a 1% damage per level increase. And you have 5 on the field, you have a 2.5% damage per level increase. So my thoughts on this one may be a bit different than everyone else's. I think if you happen to get lucky with the Exalted and 3 of them are in your natural build, or 2 of them at least are in your natural build, and you can flex one while you're looking for other people, it can be kind of good. It's something I would never go for. I would never build around Exalted. Yeah, generally it doesn't really make a difference unless you're getting spooned it as part of your core build. So next up we have the Invokers. So Invokers every 3 seconds gain mana. So if you have 2 on, you get 5 mana to everyone on your field. If you have 4 on, you get an additional 20 to your Invoker champions only. And if you have 6 on, you get 35 mana per 3 seconds to everyone, and an additional 45 to your Invoker champions. You can build an entire Invoker build, and it will be pretty strong. I think there was a while there where it was actually kind of meta to play that in competitive, because you can just spam with the Lilia and the Azir and the Kog'Maw, and you can really shred backlines quite easily there. And the Annie is very tanky and has a built-in Sunfire essentially with her ability. So an Invoker team is something very viable and something you can definitely do if you want to climb some LP. It is not the best team, but it is something that isn't generally contested, so it is a good workaround and a good thing you can do if you get sprinted and or your main build is contested. 9 times out of 10, you're never going to have 2 Invokers. You're never really going to get to the 4 mark, especially the 6 mark, unless you're really focusing it. But a lot of the times you're going to slide a Lilia and a Kog'Maw into your build, or an Azir is going to go on at like level 8 or 9, things like this. So pretty strong overall, and it does really help getting the abilities cast a little bit more. It can be the difference maker in some fights. So our next one is Reapers. So a Reaper's ability can critically strike and they gain critical strike chance. Whenever you have 2 Reapers on the field, you can get 20% critical strike chance to all of them. And additionally, Reapers can bleed enemies for 45% bonus true damage over 3 seconds when you get 4 of them on the field. So the champions for this are Kha'Zix, Kindred, Yone, and Kayn. These are generally 3 strong champions. Kindred, in my opinion, is very, very, very weak, but you do want them on if you're going for a Yone build, anything like this. What has been more meta recently has been Yone inserted into a Heavenly team with the Kayn. So you're getting your 4 Reapers, you're getting this, 20% crit chance, plus you're getting the bonus bleed. You're really focusing on maximizing the Yone, you're giving him all his items, and you're building Heavenly around him to further buff him. You're really putting all your eggs in the Yone basket. I think it has great success. I think it's a very good synergy. I think even 2 Reaper is very, very good. 20% critical strike on a Yone and a Kayn is very nice. If that's the only 2 you happen to have, it will be quite common to have 2 Reapers in a couple of different builds that aren't Yone focused. So moving on to Sage. So at combat start, allies in the front 2 rows gain Omnivamp and allies in the back 2 rows gain ability power. So it doesn't matter where they move, it's just where they start at combat start. So when you have 2 on the field, you get 12% Omnivamp and 15 AP. 3, you get 20% and 30 AP. 4, you get 30% Omnivamp and 45 AP. And at 5, you get 45 Omnivamp, 75 AP. So Sage is one of those where it could be feasible to build in 3 to 4 of these because the bonuses are very good. Now, typically you don't. Typically you have 2. Typically you'll just deal with your 12% Omnivamp and your 15 AP. Usually it's going to be Diana and Wukong, or it's going to be Morgana and Wukong. It's usually 9 times out of 10 going to be Wukong flexed in with something else, never really the overlap with Diana and Morgana, or Zyra, Morgana, things like this. Reason for that is generally you go level 8, you go level 9, you put a Wukong onto an existing build like Ghostly or your Duelist team, and these champions are already in there. In my opinion, a very strong synergy. It is something you could maybe do in focusing on getting the 4 of them or the 5 of them if you have an emblem and building a team around it. It could be quite strong. Omnivamp is very, very powerful. Giving AP to a Morgana is extremely powerful. But I've never really seen anyone have great success with a main Sage build. I would always just use it as a small component of a bigger build. So snipers get 1 attack range just at base, and snipers deal more damage to targets that are further away. So if you have 2 of them on the field, what you can get is 7% damage per hex space in between your champion and the one that hits. At 4, you get 15% damage per hex, and at 6, you get 30% damage per hex plus 1 additional range on top, meaning you can attack from 1 square further away. So the sniper champions are Caitlyn, Kog'Maw, Senna, Aphelios, and Ashe. This does mean you can pretty early on get your 2 sniper synergy. 9 times out of 10, that's where it stays. You'll never go above this. If you really want to, you can try a sniper build. In my lived experience, they get folded really easy because the backline's very easy to kill. The enemy has a Yone, the enemy has a Bard. Anything that attacks backlines quite rapidly, your team tends to crumble because you need a lot of time to do their damage and kill people one by one, especially Caitlyn's very slow. Kog'Maw can be very slow. So in my opinion, the bonus is very good if you're building like a Ghostly team or you're building the Caitlyn reroll team, just because then Caitlyn and Kog'Maw do additional damage and have that ability to one-shot people at times, but you're not relying on them, and there are other people tanking and doing other things, and these are sort of like secondary focus. So never really personally focus a sniper build. I would always use them as a secondary. So our next class is going to be Trickshots. So Trickshot's abilities ricochet. Each ricochet deals a percentage of the previous bounce's damage. The reduction also applies to Rakan's healing. So if you have 2 of these on the field, you will get 1 additional ricochet and it will do 40% of the first hit's damage. When you get 4 on, you will get 2 ricochets and it will do 60% of the previous damage. So the Trickshot champions are Sivir, Teemo, Bard, Kai'Sa, and Xayah. These are all pretty strong champions, you know. Even the Teemo, people don't really play him, but he is actually very, very strong if you itemize him, but he's not the main carry in this team. So it is actually feasible to run 4 ricochets now as a build. I do it personally. I've had Kai'Sa 3-star a couple of times because it's uncontested. This may get more popular. People may start playing this a bit more. I think since the Bard nerf, 4 Trickshots has become more the norm than the 2. And it is a bit of a better build in my opinion, because you then have multiple people ricocheting and it really helps to slaughter backlines if they have really tanky tanks. Overall, I think it's a good build and something you can use to climb LP. So Wardens gain damage reduction. For the first 10 seconds of combat, they gain an additional 12% damage reduction. So whenever you have 2 Wardens on, you get 14% damage reduction. When you have 4 on, you get 26% damage reduction. And when you have 6 on, you get 38% damage reduction, okay? So this is a very powerful trait, obviously. Most of the time you're going to have 2 Wardens. It's typically going to be your Alawi and your Garen, something like this. But there are instances where you have 4 on and it is actually a perfectly fine build. So the Warden champions are going to be Garen, Jax, Gnar, Amumu, Alawi, Nautilus, and Set. These are all pretty strong champions. These are all pretty good tanks. Obviously the Amumu and the Nautilus being the 2 best tanks out of this. Gnar being someone you can actually form a whole build around in the Dryad comp. And there are some instances where you do put on, 4 Wardens to make yourself extremely tanky, but those are quite rare and they're not sort of the top meta builds, but they are alternative builds. Personally, I like this one. I would always try to have at least 2 Wardens on. There's no point having one on because the reduction is so large. It is very helpful to have such a big tank line, especially when you have something like an Alawi who also shields herself. So guys, that is every single class in set 11. Hopefully you guys have learned a bit of something. Hopefully you guys can take this forward and gain a bit more LP, understanding what builds you should do, what ones you should avoid, and hopefully you won't try and build into something that's a bit lackluster. So if you did like the video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, leave a little comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.